take projection.
Welcome everybody to Taking On Sports. I am TD. That is Greg. Greg, how you doing, man?
I am good. How are you today, sir?
Pretty good. We just got back from the beach, so missing that, but nice to be at least a little bit cooler again. It was pretty hot out there.
I bet.
But we are here, folks, with you this week. Not too much to talk about, really. Not a lot going on. We just started the Women's World Cup, so not too much to talk about with that yet. No big happenings in NBA offseason yet, at least in terms of James Harden and Dame Lillard. Um, we got, let's see, Brian Harmon just won the Open Championship, but
Yep.
that's about all we can say about that. uh, so, yeah, I guess we'll get into it like we mentioned. Just nothing going on in NBA. The biggest thing that happened since we last talked was that Kimba Walker decided to go play in Europe at AS Monaco.
Yeah.
Which not that's not a bad place to play. If we're being honest, get
Well, it'd be the
get paid and live in Monaco for a little bit.
getting paid, be the nice location. Probably the best person in the league, even with injuries. Like, hey,
Yeah,
uh, so one of those times. Obviously, it's one of those players that he had some really good years in Charlotte, but it's kind of because he was in Charlotte, no one paid attention. And then he got once he got to like Boston, and things just didn't go as one would have hoped there. But
yeah, it's just kind of a. You don't want to say his career kind of peaked with that UConn run, but that's definitely kind of what it'll probably be.
yeah, I mean when you think of Kimball Walker, I mean that's the first thing you think
Mm-hmm.
of is that 2011 season run from the Big East tournament to the all the way to the national title after where they like the 8 seed, or I mean it wasn't
They're
a
pretty low. Yeah, they weren't a typical UConn like top 3 seed or something.
oh,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, that's like we mentioned, nothing going on really. The only, and you can't even call it news out of that, is just Daryl Morey, Sixers GM, had just said like any trade with, James Harden would have to keep the Sixers a title contender, so he's not gonna, dump them for
Give them up for
20 cents
nothing.
on the dollar. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Um,
which is understandable. I mean it's a business, so yeah, you got to get if you're gonna get rid of somebody, you got to get something that makes sense back because
hmm
76ers are kind of in that area where they're a contender, but at the same time, I mean they've been in that same gray area for a while where they're good, but they're not quite where they need to be, and it's been some seasons now.
hmm
So
Yeah, and I mean, Harden says he wants to go to the Clippers. That's the report anyway, and like they've given away all their picks.
yeah,
The
so
Thunder got all their picks.
Clippers don't have
So
anything. Yeah, I mean the Clippers don't have anything to offer that they would give up for Harden. I
no, yeah.
mean,
So yeah, still waiting on that. We still got a couple months before the NBA season
right.
starts, so something will happen there. Whether it's Harden saying he'll stay, or finally going somewhere, or Dame finally Portland finally pulling the trigger on the trade with him.
Figuring out where he's going.
Um,
Yeah,
but the only
but it's one of
go ahead.
no, I'm just saying one of those things. Like I mean, neither side really has to move too quickly with it. So I mean, it's probably one of those things that's going to kind of sit for till we get to the start, or maybe even after the start of the season. Honestly, but
hmm Yeah,
I
it's
don't think
true.
either side wants to make a bad move there.
It's true. Neither team, Portland or Philly, is really incentivized to do it before the season, so they could hold on to it.
Or
As long as it doesn't tank their season early.
exactly.
The only other, we touched on it last time too. We said we talk a little bit more about it this time, but Adam Silver has talked about expansion in the coming years. And the NBA is a 30-team league. 32 seems to be a good number everyone wants to get to in pro leagues, at least here in America. Um, Last time the NBA added a new team was the Bobcats, who of course now are the Hornets in 2004, so almost 20 years.
Right.
Uh, well, first of all, are you in favor of expansion? And then do you think that, right now Seattle and Las Vegas seem to be the favorites? Would you agree with those two cities?
Yeah, I mean, Las Vegas seems to handle events well. Of course, they've been doing that for with all the casino stuff for a long time, and they know how to handle their crowds. And I mean, and there's been good attendances because it's one of those cities people come and they go. So even if they didn't have a strong home crowd, not saying they wouldn't, but there's always people coming in and out that wouldn't mind catching an NBA game in Las Vegas. So I think it's always going to be a place that always is going to have a decent crowd, whether they had a strong home crowd or not. So I think that's not a bad thing. And then basically they'd have everything beside baseball, and that might be on the works as well. So Las Vegas, who knew it? The Sin City getting all the pro sports at one time was considered a no-no,
Hmm.
but um,
Yeah, for real. Remember when they put the All Star game there back when, back in the day, it was a big deal. And
yeah.
now that,
Oh my God, they're gonna.
well, now that American sports have finally embraced gambling,
Yeah,
of course now it's not such
right.
a, uh,
Taboo thing.
it's not such a black mark, kind of be like, oh, Vegas, you can't do that now. Like you said, the A's will probably move there, and they're about to have four major teams.
Right.
So yeah, and like you said, they don't have to have, they'll get their regulars, their locals that'll be season ticket holders and all that, but people go in town for Vegas, they'll go see a ball game, they'll go see a basketball game, they'll go see a football
Oh
game if
yeah,
they want.
yeah, for sure.
Um,
And then what's the other city? Seattle. I mean, yeah, I mean that's one. Probably should have never lost their team to
mm,
begin with. It's a lot happened there, and still a lot of. They're still pretty upset up there,
mhm.
honestly. So, you would like to see them get another team there. We know that they support their teams well, and they love when the Sonics were up there. They love the Sonics. I mean, I'm sure they would embrace their team and come and support. So yeah, definitely wouldn't mind that. I guess the main thing you look at too is that with two teams pretty much being in the West, I guess then you'd have to determine who if you're going to move somebody from the West to the East to even things up there, or how that would go.
Yeah, and then you wonder, would maybe you put Minnesota maybe in the East because they're kind of there with Milwaukee and Chicago and all that, or
Right.
maybe
Yeah, you
Memphis or
kind
even New Orleans, and over there move
of
them to
right.
the Southeast Division, or do you, if you add 32 teams, then do you realign the NBA altogether? Maybe go like four divisions of eight, or maybe the
Yeah,
NFL were eight divisions of four or something, or
sure.
um, there's been somewhat of a push sometimes to just maybe for scheduling purposes have people play, closer teams to them, but when the playoffs just seed them 1 through 16, and
Yeah, that might
mhm.
that might actually be better, just because sometimes it'll lead to better matchups that you couldn't get. But yeah, that might actually be very. Because sometimes you want to see, a team out the West play a team out the East, just to see how that 7 game series would go, and that give you that opportunity too. They do 1 through 16 for sure.
Right, especially in those
Might
years
actually.
when like the West has like their top four seeds all have better records than maybe the East top seed or something,
Yeah, exactly.
But I think I'm with you. If you're gonna go with two cities, it's probably Seattle. Definitely deserves it.
Yeah,
If you're listening and you've never really read up on that whole story of how they lost the Sonics, you should find it. Pretty shady, pretty shitty deal they got.
yeah,
Um, and then, like you said, Vegas is becoming a new hotbed for sports, pro sports in America. So why not? Um, you talk about some other maybe dark horse cities, like maybe somewhere like Louisville, with a rich basketball tradition over there, but
Right.
with
I don't know.
Indiana right
It's one of
there.
those,
Yeah.
and just that they're such Louisville Cardinal fans. It's one of those places you don't know. I don't know
Hmm.
how well that would trend.
Yeah, it's like a
It's
pro
kind of
football team in Birmingham or something.
right.
It's so centered around
I mean,
being college fans that
yeah,
it's hard for.
just because they've never had it before and they've been so
Mhm.
entrenched in their college team. You know, how open are they? Sounds weird, but how open are they to supporting another team when they have such love and such a you know connection with that college team, and here comes a brand new team. So,
Yeah.
eh, no, I think Seattle and Las Vegas are perfect because they don't really have. They're not really well. I mean, other than UNLV, I mean, there's not a strong college connection. Seattle, yes, University of Washington is right there, but you know they, I, they could definitely, as we know, do both with no
Yeah,
problems.
they
So
supported the Sonics for years. Um,
yeah,
yeah, and then you see
I
other.
think those are the perfect.
No, yeah, those are the perfect cities, and you see other cities like Vancouver gets thrown out, but you can't put a team in Vancouver before you put one in Seattle. Um, you know,
Especially, I mean, they already had a team there, and they moved to
yeah,
Memphis. So
exactly. And then you got places like maybe St. Louis or Kansas City. Those would be, I think, options if you want to go expand again down the line.
yeah,
But for now, yeah, I think
and I think yeah, and yeah, but I mean, yeah, I mean, if you were to move one to the Midwest, more of the mid, I mean, either one of those, Kansas City or St. Louis, would be nice. I think they two cities that definitely support their teams. They come out. Yeah, so I mean, down the line, I would say if you're going to expand further, I'm not necessarily sure if that's needed, but yeah, I mean, either one of those cities would be, I think, decent fits.
hmm
Should you go that route? But yeah, definitely go with those first two before I would look anywhere else.
for sure. All right. Let's see. Going on, Major League Baseball, of course, it's got the kind of center stage right now at this time of the sports calendar. Had the All Star
Get about a
game.
month
Uh,
or
what's up?
so. Get a couple weeks to themselves
Hmm.
before preseason football starts,
Yeah,
and
before we
uh,
start talking football all the time.
yeah,
Um, they had the All Star game. The NL won it for the first time. What, 9 years?
9 years. Yeah,
Um, and then now we're approaching. The home run derby was fun. What, Vlad Jr.
that
won it.
first round.
Yeah,
That first round, he dropped 41 home runs. I was like, golly.
man, yeah, putting on a show there. Um, and then cool, getting Griffey involved in there, and
Oh yeah,
seen some
so
ideas floated out there that they should start doing like a Legends home run derby. I think that'd be pretty cool too. Uh,
yeah, I think that would get some numbers.
hmm Um, but then of course, next up for baseball is the trade deadline's rapidly approaching here on what,
Yeah.
6 days now, or what? I can't do math. Sorry, that's 8 days.
Hmm.
Uh, and of course, the big one there is Shohei Ohtani going to stay an Angel, or is he going to be traded? He's is he a free agent after this season? Is that what it is?
Thank you. Yeah, I think it's after this one.
Yeah, and
Pretty.
obviously just a unbelievable player. One of the game's best pitchers, one of the game's best hitters, leads the league in homers.
Yeah.
Um, he it, he's just a one man wrecking crew.
Exactly.
And Mike Trout has been hurt there, but the Angels once again struggling with two of the best players in the game. They're 50-49. They're 8 games out of the Rangers in the West, and
Yeah.
they are,
Not going anywhere
yeah.
fast.
And then in the wild card, they're 4 games back of a wild card spot. So if you're the Angels right now, your decision there is, if do you think you can make a run to make the playoffs, or do you trade Otani and get a king's ransom for him before he leaves for free? Um, And it's a tough choice. You don't want to make it, but you have to.
Yeah, that definitely is a tough one. Like, because I mean, it's one of those once in a lifetime players. You would love to build a have a successful franchise around, but
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, the Angels that for a while the Angels they were nice when Vlad Guerrero was there and they we were in college and everything and a little after that they were a decent franchise. But things really but that's tough. I mean, you get a lot back, but it's a bunch of probably a lot of prospects, a lot of people you don't know what they're gonna necessarily be. And you're kind of starting over, and if anything, that's gonna kill the fan interest because I mean, people come to see Otani for himself, whether they white. So I mean, you know, but yeah, you definitely don't want to have it where you're try to keep him around and then he walks next summer for free or and don't get anything because at that time it looks even worse. So it's a tough situation for him. When I would not be the one to make that choice. But you know, I,
Yeah, and it's
I don't
tough
know.
for opposing GMs too because do you risk getting rid of like all of your top prospects and maybe a couple starters for a guy that maybe won't re-sign with your team at this offseason? Do you really if you think it'll win a World Series and you do, then you say it's worth it because that's a goal to win titles. But same time, like a team like the Dodgers, they could throw a bunch of stuff at them, but they could also wait till the offseason and throw a contract at them and not have to give up their best farm players.
Right.
Um,
So the other thing too is the teams looking to get them is do they feel like they give up to top prospects? Is that the best shot of winning the World Series? Or I mean, because if he doesn't sign after the end of the season and you've given up X amount of players, and you're kind of in a tough situation as well.
hmm
And if he's not going to get you any further in the playoffs than what you could go as now, I mean, you got to look at it. Do you really believe that this is the guy, talent wise, he adds a lot, but just mixing and matching and the chemistry, is he going to come in and fit in and be the spark or the difference that takes you from the ALCS or the NLCS to the World Series and the possible championship? Who knows? But
yeah, and because you meant a good thing about chemistry. You mentioned there one dark horse team I've seen thrown out there is the Orioles, and obviously you'd want to add a guy like Otani to that team. But do you think that he resigns this all season to stay in Baltimore? And they've done such a great job of building through the draft and all their young guys. Would you want to give up a bunch of them for a rental? Um,
yeah,
they've overtaken Tampa Bay for first place in AL East now, but maybe you don't want to mess with that.
and they've built a certain culture there in Baltimore. And they build what I guess a lot of people call the right way. You build up through your farm system. You build up through the people you draft, and you make them successful instead of bringing in a big name. It's going to cost a lot.
hmm
Yeah, I mean Baltimore, unfortunately, not a spot that a lot of big names are going to want to stay long term. I would say, um, especially in baseball. I don't know. I mean, I think they could be as successful as they want to be with their current staff. And the certain culture that they build. If I were them, I would run the course with what we're doing, just because that's what's got them to where they are right now. Building up their farm, young guys come up, become successful that way. I wouldn't necessarily move for Otani because of what it might mess up for your future. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's again it's tough because you're getting the maybe the best player in the game, one of the best players historically ever. You know, if you look, I saw something the other day. His numbers through the amount of games he's played right now are better, at least equal to Babe Ruth. Um, so yeah, you have to weigh that against, like we said, does he resign, or is it worth giving away all those prospects and players you'd have to give up to give them, or would you rather hold on to those guys and either hope they develop or maybe trade them for numerous players? Like get three or four uh,
Just
contributors.
if
Mhm.
that's who you really want, and you feel like then he's gonna either A, stay with the Angels on after this year, or B, he's gonna be a rental and go back into free agency next, not sign long term with whoever he goes to. You stay with what you have now if it's successful, and then if you really want Otani, you throw the checkbook at him next summer without losing all your players,
Mhm.
which can happen as well.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, if you're in a decent spot, and I don't know if it's a move. It's a move that could definitely make you. It could definitely break you. But yeah, it's one of those things. You, Unless you're for sure that that's what you want to do, because that's tricky. Because those two, you're getting them for what 2, 3 months,
Mhm.
and if it doesn't work out, then you're shit out of luck with losing all the whoever you have to give up or the money or whatever you're doing to get him in there. And then if he doesn't sign with you, then you kind of shot your
Yeah, you've set back your your farm
time a little
system a
bit.
few years. Um, but yeah, so that'd be interesting to see, and then you could always consider like, crazy owners like the Padres guy and what's his face over in the Mets. Like they've been throwing money at everyone there. So do they just decide that they want to try to go get this guy? And even though, the Mets are what, like 18 games out of first place. I think anything's up in the air. It's just so tough. I do think he probably gets traded because I think,
Someone's gonna believe that he's a missing
yeah, I
piece
think someone's going to
for the
make an offer good enough to where the Angels are like, we got to take this, and not risk losing him this all season for
right.
free. Because they certainly have a
Yeah,
shot to resign him, but also he's been there for how many years now, and they've done nothing with him and Mike Trout. And you know that even if he doesn't come out and say it, that wears on the guy. Um,
you've been somewhere to the top player in the league, and you're not even sniffing the
mhm.
playoffs. Like
But
even with the so
no, yeah, yeah, yeah. And of course, there's on the other side of things, you're just looking at, I'm sure there'll be. I don't think there's going to be too many blockbusters. It'll be the usual baseball deadline stuff. Contenders will get, you know, back of rotation starters,
man,
bullpen help. Uh, you know,
yeah,
things to watch. You're watching, Ronald Acuna over in Atlanta having a historic season, trying to become like the first guy to hit 40 homers, still 75 bases.
incredible
Yeah. So it'd be interesting to watch. As,
for sure.
the trade deadline, and then once we get going to the, August always kind of. It's funny because baseball kind of takes a back seat in August for, like you said, preseason NFL and then college football hype. And then the first
Exactly.
couple weeks of September, everyone's excited about football. And then toward the end of September, the pennant race is kind of put baseball back on the map.
Right.
But
Yeah, these are kind.
we'll get to that. Speaking
Yeah,
of
they
college football,
getting a little.
go ahead.
No, I just saying. Yeah, baseball kind of takes that back seat so people get accustomed to all that football's back, and they're still excited, but it doesn't necessarily take all their attention. So then they, oh look, got some interesting pennant races,
Hmm.
and yeah, so
Yeah, because
because
you get those first couple, you get the excitement of open a week, and especially in college football,
yeah,
you get those big out of conference
oh,
matchups first couple weeks, and then you settle into that like week 2, 3, 4 schedule where it's pretty lame usually, and
yeah,
those opening conference games are meh sometimes. And
yeah, for sure.
but
Yeah, you get your yeah, yeah. Some of those week 2 and 3 matchups, you're like, yeah, that's kind of the point where unless you're a hardcore fan, you're not. your casual fans really not necessarily watching a South Florida Alabama game or a or a Utah Weber State
Yeah,
type of match.
Ohio State playing whatever small Ohio team they're kicking the shit out of.
Who they're playing.
Yeah, but yeah, you're at least one of these people. If you're someone that watches, has multiple screens or something, you got one of those on a baseball game somewhere. Maybe it might be on mute,
Yeah,
but yeah. Speaking of college
unless
football, SEC media days.
last year,
What?
unless you talking about screen when they would break in every time that Aaron
Oh
Judge
yeah,
would come up to bat, no matter what was on.
yeah. Thankfully, you don't want to see him hurt, but thankfully, Aaron Judge will not be approaching any records and
No,
interrupting our
no,
college football games this year. But who knows? Maybe somebody else
uh,
will approach some record, and uh,
right.
the internet will find something else to be pissed off at.
Yeah.
Um, I mentioned it though. SEC Media Days was this past week. Kind of the most overrated event in college football. It's so hyped up, and then it's just a bunch of coaches talking, and the SEC
Coach
media
speak.
releases their predictions. They predicted Georgia to win. Like, okay, shocking. Like that's not a surprise. You know, Lane Kiffin getting into it with Paul Feinbaum or whatever. Um, but yeah, other than that, like it's always one everyone hypes it up, and I'm just like, I just do not care about all these guys.
I mean, I like it in the sense that that to me the kickoff of college football season. You're
Hmm.
right there. It's right there. So I like it for that aspect. But yeah, I mean, it's a bunch of coach speak. Don't get a whole bunch from the media days, and especially uh, I guess the funniest thing was, I thought it was pretty funny with Jimbo. They kept asking about him and the OC, and one minute he's like, "Yeah, I'm gonna let him open things up," and then the next minute he's like, "Well, I don't know if I'm gonna give up everything for the play calling."
That is going to be
That's
a
gonna be fun.
glorious shit
That's gonna
show.
be funny,
That's going to be,
Bobby.
yeah, him and Bobby Petrino. They might fight on the sideline during the game this year. That's going to be something worth
You might
watching.
have booth.
Yeah, Jimbo
Yeah,
Jimbo takes
because
Jimbo takes the elevator up to the booth to drag him out. Yeah, like you said, at coach speak, that a lot of people tried to make a lot of Nick Saban not named the starter. Like, when has he ever named a starter in the summer?
and that's just the most obvious
Mm,
thing. Of course, like Bryce Young, of course he was a starter.
yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I mean, there's no point. I mean, other than for you guys to write articles about, the media to talk about. I mean, whether he names somebody or not, I mean, it's gonna be the same thing. Like no one thinks that it's gonna be the same thoughts. No one thinks Alabama's gonna win based off who their quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, this has been Saban's MO. When AJ McCarron was battling, what was it, Star Jackson maybe back then, or Sims? Who was the Sims guy?
It was Sims, Philip Sims, wasn't it?
Yeah, but
Yeah,
like
went
he
on.
didn't name a starter, and we watched how it played out the first couple of weekends, and then with the Jake Coker and
Got to
Blake
that.
Barnett's, we watched that play out for a couple of weeks with Jalen Hurts versus Blake Barnett. We watched that play out, like
So about the second series that USC game.
yeah.
And
It was really incredible though. Jalen Hurts fumbling his first, was it his first play or at least the first series,
yeah, first,
and then
yeah,
turns out he just ran all over USC. But
yeah,
people, yeah, I don't know. People try to act, oh, he's baking. What do you say? It's like baking a cake. You don't want to pull it out too early. It's like, all right, yeah, nothing new here. Nick Saban does not
yeah,
make quarterback decisions until he sees him play in an actual game.
exactly. And the thing is you look at it when you look at the entire Saban tenure, and at no time has there been a problem at the quarterback spot. That's always been the least of the concern. You're never scared every week. Oh, who's is our guy? That's the least of our concerns. I would say
Mhm.
it's the most. It's the biggest thing because of course the bit. What the one of the top positions and one of the most intriguing media wise and people are eyes on Alabama. But other than that, I mean, it's really not the biggest thing. We just have to have a guy, as long as whoever ends up being their quarterback doesn't make key mistakes. I mean, we're going to be where we need to be at. So,
Right. Um. Yeah. Well said. Nothing to add to that. Elsewhere in college football, uh, Pat Fitzgerald fired officially from Northwestern. I
yeah,
believe he was suspended last time we talked, and then
last time
Northwestern reversed course. They fired him. A lot of investigations still going on into what exactly happened
was
there.
going
Even
on.
if he wasn't aware of it, that's kind of an indictment in itself that you don't have
There.
control of your program.
Yeah, it's just one of those things, and it's some of those things that used to be cool or people were able to do, man. You just can't do that stuff anymore. Whether you think it's soft or not, you know, we're in a time where you can't let that stuff fly. That stuff, some of that hazing stuff, just cannot happen.
Hmm.
Just not gonna.
Yeah. Yeah, that's in a bygone era of when that was okay, and it's just
Yeah,
weird some of it, and it's funny because a lot of people, oh, what's Northwestern doing? It's the best coach school history. If you actually look at the records, he's wasn't that great.
not. If anything, I mean, you were able to. I mean, the guy what he was 1-11 last year. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people get fired 11 seasons.
Um. So yeah, that's they'll be going moving forward with an interim coach, and then we'll see
Right.
that. But it's
See how that
Northwestern, kind of
opens
like
up.
Vanderbilt, they have a ceiling. Playing in the
Yeah.
conference, they do. Elsewhere, everything's been quiet on like the realignment front. There's that stuff with San Diego State arguing with the Mountain West whether they actually put their letter in to leave or not. And they are officially still a member of the Mountain West.
Yeah.
Now, this was an interesting one. FAMU has halted football activities in the wake of a rap video
Yeah.
shot in the locker room. So that's
Yeah. But that happened with I think Friday. The video was shot. I guess the coach didn't know anything about it, which is yeah, not not the best. Someone's got to let him know whether he would be cool with it. He at least has to be aware that that might,
yeah.
yikes.
I guess the issue on the university side is they were wearing university, logos and stuff,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
subject matter in let's see, where's the statement? It said the language
Doesn't
in the
align with
video is not consistent with Florida A&M's core values, principles, and beliefs. Um, well, all right, okay. Um, that's one of those stupid things that'll get too much traction, and then we'll forget about it in a couple of weeks.
yeah. It's one of those things. We're kind of in the dead period, so it's gonna
Gotta have something to talk
jump
about,
off,
right?
jump off a little bit, and everybody have their little 2 cents on it, one way or the other. Yep, and then in a few weeks, no one will even be thinking about. Sadly, no one will even talk about SWAC football this year because Dion's no longer in the SWAC.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
where
they will not get the hype. Dion's off. Had surgery. Said he's feeling good
yeah,
for his the blood clot in his leg. Um, but yeah, like it's a dead period. Need to find some stories. Uh, everybody's starting to buy their preview mags, and
yeah,
still wishing that we still had an NCAA game to buy at this time of year next year.
like get us, get us in the mood. But yeah, hopefully everything will come next year as planned, and about this time we'll all have a copy. And much easier to get the games is you just get them digitally now. You don't even have to go anywhere,
Hmm.
which is quite the difference of what we used to go out at GameStop or Walmart and they had it open at midnight and long line and
Yeah, those days are long gone. Let's see. Elsewhere in the sports world, we mentioned Women's World Cup has kicked off. Not everybody's even played their first group stage game yet. The U.S. women played the other night, 3-0 win over Vietnam.
We
Um, we probably won't really find out much about them until the knockout stage. Um,
exactly.
they don't have the toughest group. Other than that, though, really not much going on. Can you think of anything you wanted to touch on from the world of sports?
Not a whole lot. We're just getting to that time period where everybody is starting to get their hot takes on the season with college football and the NFL. So, we're have about a month of that. But other than
Yeah,
that,
it'll be
yeah,
the Hall of Fame game
that
before we know it. Yep.
yeah, exactly, almost there. But it's some interesting stuff going on. It's just a matter of if you sit down and watch women's soccer or not, or baseball fan. If you're a fan of either, get some time and some time to themselves where they can just kind of shine and be the national spotlight while we wait for football. So,
Exactly. So that said, what's been done up real good for you since we last talked?
done up for me really good. Kind of Uh, been on Facebook a while, been posting for a while, and they finally allowed me to start monetizing off just my posts. So hopefully, I'll start making a little bit of money here instead of working for free. So that but so we'll see where that takes us. But how about you?
I think I mentioned at the top, but we went to the beach this past week, and that's always a good time.
Oh,
A good relaxing
for
trip with
sure.
the wife, family.
Nice.
So that was fun. Ate some good food. Got time at
Oh
the
yeah.
beach. Got the kid in the water. Um,
Nice.
so everything was good there. But yeah, that should do it for us. Of course, our big announcement this week is we will see you again next week. We are going back to weekly releases. We will start our college football previews next week. Like we just talked about, it's that time of year. Um,
Hot.
we will break it down. We're going to make it a little shorter than last year. We did everything in kind of one big episode, so we'll break it down. We'll probably do a couple of big conferences a week. And then let's see, looking at the calendar, we'll see. Uh, Probably start. I don't know, maybe the ACC and Big Ten next week, and then maybe go to like the Big 12, Pac 12, and then we can do SEC in the Alabama episode, and then maybe we'll have a kind of a national episode and maybe talk some
Nice.
smaller teams or make playoff predictions. But we'll see how it goes.
So you guys take notes because, of course, as you know, whatever we pick, probably
Yeah,
not going to work out as.
yeah. Take notes. Yeah, go back to listen to last year's episodes and see just how
Yeah,
accurate we were.
I will say, not to toot my own horn, but I look back at some of the stuff I predicted for last year. I at least one team in every conference championship game
Well, there you go.
in every conference.
Yeah.
At least one.
I've not gone back
For
and
what
listened.
that's worth.
I just knew it was that bad. Yeah, I need to go back and listen and see how bad it was. But with that said, like we said, we'll start that next week. We'll do some football talk, some college football talk. So until next time, y'all, keep it done up real good out there yourselves. Greg, take it easy, man.
You too.
Hey, folks, hope you enjoyed this episode of Taking on Sports here on the Alabama Take Podcast Network. Be sure to check out our new female-led sports podcast, The Stare Down, as well as Alabama Take staples like Taking It Down and the Alabama Slam. You can find us and all of our great podcasts wherever you get your podcasts, as well as on thealabamatake.com. If you would, please subscribe and rate us. And remember, we'll be back next week as we return to our weekly schedule to get ready for football season.